Do you find yourself in a shame spiral around things such as being late, forgetful, disorganized, or even maybe considered or judged as too much when it comes to a neurotypical standard? In this video, I'm going to dissect the shame that we tend to feel as ADHDers, and then I'm going to give you 5 tips that you can use right now to stop shame from running the show for you. And if you're a late diagnosed ADHD woman and you struggle with feelings like shame, overwhelm, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, or feeling like your emotions are running the show and leading to self-sabotage, I'm an ADHD coach, and this is the work that I do and that I'm dedicated to. I want to let you know that you're not alone in this, and I would love to speak to you directly. There is a link pinned in the top of the description of this video to get on a free call with me to see if I might be able to help. Now, before we get into how to manage shame, I think it's really important to understand why so many women with ADHD have overwhelming feelings of shame pre-diagnosis, but also post-diagnosis. And the truth is, whether someone has ADHD or not, human nature is to be really hard on yourself and also to be subjected to something that's called negativity bias. Negativity bias is a primitive way that we keep our brains safe from danger because it's way easier to give into defeat than to actually believe in ourselves. And I think when we have ADHD, negativity bias is really on steroids. And this comes back to the fact that so many ADHD people, whether they are diagnosed or not, hear so much more negative feedback than the average person. In fact, a child with ADHD by the age of 10 years old will hear 20,000 pieces of negative feedback. So we almost expect it. There are times when we might feel rushed, and in rushing, we make mistakes. Some of us with ADHD, our minds are working so quickly that we really struggle with that attention to detail aspect of getting something done. And so we start a collection of the mistakes that we make, and we plant those mistakes into our long-term memory. And the problem with that is because we're in such a rush and because we're already kind of, waiting to mess something up, when we do something right, we either minimize it or we forget about it because we're so focused on getting on to the next task. We also tend to compare ourselves to neurotypical people. And for a lot of us, that could have been because at the time, we didn't know that we had ADHD. We just had this underlying knowing that everything was a little bit harder for us than what it seemed like it was for our peers, friends, family, and coworkers. And the reason for this is because it takes a lot of executive functioning, that front part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, kind of like the office manager of your brain, to make sure that you don't have time blindness, to make sure that you're organized, that you're staying emotionally regulated, and that you're motivated to do more of the mundane tasks. According to Attitude Magazine, the ADHD brain has a 30 to 40% delay in the prefrontal cortex, that office manager. So of course, things are going to be way harder for us. Masking is another huge reason that we feel shame. If we're continuously trying to show up as less, being so aware that sometimes we interrupt or that we can be late or more disorganized, that we hide authentic parts of ourselves for fear of rejection, that absolutely fuels the shame spiral that so many of us fall into. So what can we do to escape the debilitating feelings of shame when we have ADHD? And we want to still show up as our authentic self, but we don't want to feel bad of it. Here's a few ideas for you. Understanding the true nature of ADHD is so important. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder. It is not a moral failing. Looking at ADHD through this lens can help you shift your perspective on the unique attributes that your brain has that neurotypical brains don't have. ADHD involves brain-based challenges that affect attention, emotional regulation, organization, prioritization, and executive functions which are not under voluntary control. The second thing you can do is reframe past experiences through an ADHD lens. This can help you realize that some of the isms that you show up at as an ADHDer are not personal shortcomings, but rather symptoms of an undiagnosed condition that you only found out about during adulthood. And this reframing is really, really important because it helps us deviate from blaming ourselves for how we are. It is no more your fault that you have ADHD than it's your fault that you have the eye color that you have or that you are the height that you are. ADHD is highly hereditary. There's a really good chance that if you have children, one or all of them has it, and you probably have a parent or at the very least an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent that also has ADHD. And the only reason that ADHDers feel like we don't fit into society is because society is a neurotypical binary. And let's face it, if the world was set up for neurodivergent people, ADHD, autistics, and other people under the neurodivergent umbrella, it would be the neurotypical people who would be struggling. So this isn't a moral failing. You've done nothing wrong. Society, in a sense, has really failed us. And I hope, if anything in this video, that validates you. Number 3 is to develop compassion for yourself. And I'm not saying to feel sorry for yourself, but develop some compassion for yourself. You have been traveling up a hill that neurotypical people don't have to travel while carrying a 50-pound weight. Is it going to be harder? Yes. Can you still get up that hill? Absolutely. But just understanding that you do have challenges and being kind and compassionate with yourself can not only help alleviate some of your ADHD symptoms, because any kind of emotional dysregulation or ADHD big feelings makes our ADHD symptoms worse. Give yourself some grace, give yourself some self-compassion. There's nothing wrong with you. You've just been carrying a 50-pound weight that 90% of society does not have to carry. Number 4 is do your best to connect with others who have ADHD. There's so many Facebook groups out there for ADHDers. There are support groups. I happen to have a Facebook group for late diagnosed ADHD women. The link to that group is in the description of this video. Finding community is huge for us. So many of us went through 20, 30, 40, 50 years not knowing what was wrong with us. And it turns out there was nothing wrong with us. We're just different. And we have struggles that many people don't understand. Finding community builds connection and gives you the opportunity to know that you're not alone. You're not this weirdo. You're not lazy. You're not too much. You're just misunderstood. And community can create validation and connection and can make us feel so much better about ourselves. And my last tip is to seek professional support. If you have trauma around your ADHD, seek out a therapist. If you are looking for the skills, the tools to be able to thrive with your ADHD right here in the present moment moving forward, seek out an ADHD coach. I help women who are late diagnosed with ADHD, and all my coaching is done in a group setting. So community and coaching and support are all lumped into how I support ADHDers. And there is a link in the description of this video to book a call with me if that is something that you think would be of value to you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you learned something today. I hope you feel better about yourself, and I will see you next week in the next video.